Good evening. This afternoon, I spent some time outside. I had a project planned I was gonna do, and it ended up not being right. So let me just show you what I mean. Today, I'm gonna be changing the way this support is. The leg comes down and the support goes, and it's bolted onto this wood here. But we have some tables that don't fit under here. They're wider than this area, so we want to lower this. So I'm going to cut it off here, and I'm going to cut it off here. And this part here that I have, it's about 4 inches, is going to go down here. And this is going to go, it's going to weld like an L. This beam is going to be lowered to about right here. And then I'm going to weld that on. And so that should be the support that we need. See, as I was talking about the L and the bracket and how it was going to fit, I realized that we're pouring about 3 inches of concrete there soon. And what I had planned wouldn't work. The bar would end up being in the concrete, and that just wouldn't be a good idea. So I scratched that whole plan for today, and I had spent the first part of the day sanding and putting polyurethane on the top of my table. The time I spent today has been put on a project that might not last. But right now, we're gonna make something that's definitely not going to last. Let's make some cinnamon rolls. So first of all, wash your hands, get the counters good and clean, because we'll be using it to knead the dough. So the first thing it calls for is 2 eggs. Beat the 2 eggs, and then we're gonna add 3/4 cup of hot water. The water, oh! Well, that egg rolled off the counter. I got one more. Don't drop your eggs. So, 3/4 cup of hot water. It should be about 115 degrees. I'm gonna make mine a little bit hotter than that because I'm gonna crack the eggs in. I'm gonna put the eggs in the water, and I don't want the eggs to cool down the water too much. So if you got time, you could leave your eggs set out till they get room temperature before starting to make this recipe. So the water needs to be hot enough to activate the yeast. That's in between 105 to 115 degrees. We'll whisk the 2 eggs. And we'll add them to the hot water. Now we'll add a packet of yeast. So 2 1/4 teaspoons is 1 packet of yeast. So we're gonna add that to the hot water egg mixture. Yeast is a living organism. It is activated, it's woken up when you put the hot water in. That's why it's got to be between 105 to 115. If it's too hot, it'll kill the yeast. If it's too cold, it won't activate it. So when the yeast wakes up, it starts eating and it creates gas. And these gases are what we're looking for when we're making bread. So we'll put this mixture in the refrigerator for about 15 minutes. So while the yeast mixture is chilling in the refrigerator, got my bowl cleaned out, and I'm gonna sift 4 cups of all-purpose flour into the bowl. Now we'll add to the flour mixture 1 teaspoon of salt, and 2 tablespoons of sugar. And we'll also add a 1/2 cup of butter. So that's 2 of these short sticks. Get this sugar and salt mixed in here good before adding the butter to it. So when I'm mixing butter, solid butter into flour or any kind of powder mixture, I like to use 2 knives. Once the butter is fully incorporated with the flour, make a dip in the center of the flour mixture. And that's where we'll add the yeast mixture. So our yeast mixture has been sitting in the refrigerator for about 15 minutes, and it's time to add it to the flour butter mixture. Now we'll stir the mixture until it's fully incorporated. Once it's all mixed together, then we'll knead it for about 2 minutes. We can leave it in the bowl to knead it. We don't have to pour it on the counter. See, it's like a crumbly mixture, but that's perfect. You don't want it to be too wet. Because once you squeeze it together, it's gonna stay. Now, once it's formed into this nice ball, that's when you'll have to put it on the counter to knead it. So we're going to sprinkle just a little bit of flour. Just to keep this from sticking. And we'll knead this mixture 2 or 3 minutes. You'll be able to feel it coming together, becoming smooth and elastic. After you've kneaded the dough for 2 or 3 minutes until it becomes nice and smooth and elastic, then put it in a bowl, a clean bowl, and let it sit. You can cover it with a damp paper towel to keep the dough from drying out, and let it sit for about 30 minutes for it to rise. Now I'm going to spray my bowl with a little bit of nonstick spray to keep the dough from not sticking to the inside of my bowl. Best to put it someplace warm. So we'll let that sit for about a half an hour, and we'll come back with the next one. While the dough is rising, we will make the filling for the cinnamon rolls. We have cinnamon, so I'm gonna mix some sugar and cinnamon in a little cup. Doesn't matter how much, because you just use what feels right and dump out the rest. Saying about half a cup maybe, and then however much cinnamon that you like. And then just mix it up. This is what you'll pour onto your dough before you roll it up. I'm gonna melt a little bit of butter. We'll brush it on after the dough has risen. We're gonna roll it out into a oblong shape. We'll add the butter, we'll brush it onto the dough, then we'll sprinkle the cinnamon on it, roll it up, and cut it and bake it. So let me get this back. My dough's risen. About to roll it out on the counter. And you can use flour on the counter, just a little to roll out your dough so it doesn't stick. For this application, I'm gonna go ahead and use a little bit of nonstick cooking spray. So we'll turn the dough out on the counter and roll it. I don't have a rolling pin, but we'll smash it into an oblong shape, say long enough to roll up. We want it to be about half an inch, quarter inch thick. It's best to use a rolling pin. Now I have some butter melted, and I'm gonna brush it on. And then we'll sprinkle the cinnamon sugar mixture we made earlier. And then we'll start at the one end and we'll roll it up. And here's the time I come up with my disclaimer. I have to admit, I don't have any all-purpose flour, so I'm using corn flour. And it's not really working the same way flour would. I don't know what it's gonna taste like, but it's pretty crumbly. It doesn't have the same gluten in it, so it doesn't have so the yeast didn't form the gluten strands. And that's really what makes the cinnamon rolls good. So when you roll it up, it'd be a lot easier if you use all-purpose flour like you should. I like to use thread to cut the cinnamon rolls with. It makes a nice even cut when you use a knife, because the dough has a lot of air in it. It will push it down and kind of smash the dough. So if you use thread, it works a lot better. Just slide it under the roll, get to the size you want, cross it, and pull. It cuts a really nice edge. So you can lay these flat on a pan to bake with the sides touching. But today I'm going to use a muffin tin. After you put the cinnamon rolls on in the pan, then put it in a warm area covered and let it rest again so the dough can rise a second time. That's the key to making them good. Once it rises a second time, then put them in the oven at 350 degrees and bake them for about 30 minutes. But keep an eye on them, don't let them burn. Remember, they'll be a lot prettier if you use all-purpose flour. There they are, ready for the oven. What I have for the topping for these cinnamon rolls is a can of condensed milk that was boiled for 4 hours, and it turned into this delicious coffee tasting stuff. I'm gonna put that on the top. It's really delicious. All right, it's time to get these out. Can't wait to try one. Look at this. This is what you get if you boil a can of condensed milk for 4 hours. Just leave it in the can, take the label off. Leave it in the can and just boil it and make something delicious. So I guess this is a new thing. We got Betty's cornbread cinnamon rolls. Corn flour instead. Let's have a taste. They're not bad. They're really good. They're pretty crummy and they fall apart easily, but they're pretty delicious. Thanks for watching, and have a great night. Take care.